Yes, it is.
We have friends today.
Yes.
You had friends all week.
I had JD as my friend here over the last couple of days, and we had another friend yesterday, a guy by the name of Professor Ryan Baer, who was in charge of this project that we talked about where they're mapping heat around Houston, mapping the roadways, all of Harris County. He said they had 120 volunteers. He said the miles that they drove would have taken you from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. That's the number of miles that they measured
just in Harris
County.
County.
Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy because we talk about this all the time, that maybe some numbers that are cities that are very close to each other have different numbers. And it's like, well, if you're on the ground and you see where the reporting site is, you're like, oh.
It would make more sense. I did ask him, I said, well, why instead of just driving around, can we just have like a permanent, weather station in these different spots? I guess it's probably too expensive.
Yeah. But that's awesome. So you can watch on Fox Local.
You can go back and watch the whole archive of Forecasting with Friends. Because
we have some pretty good shows back there.
We have good shows. Now, admittedly, sometimes you're going to see a story about a walrus or something, you know what I mean? But
I'm not mad about that.
I always look for those. No, I definitely always look for those.
We always, especially on Friday, we're going to try to get some more dog stories in. That's always our promise to you.
So I have a question for you. I have a question for all of you. Well, we're not going to get to the big question yet because we do have a poll question coming up, but just as Forecasting with Friends question.
Yeah.
Would you, given the chance, would you go to space?
Nope.
Me neither. Me neither. I'm not a thrill seeker.
Three things. No. Claustrophobic, A.
Oh, yeah.
B, what happens if you don't make it to the ISS?
Well, yeah.
And then C, what if you get stuck up there?
Which is what's happening right now. So these astronauts were taken to the International Space Station in a Boeing Starliner. Now, Boeing has had some problems lately.
Yes.
They've had some serious problems with their 737s and everything, among other things.
And that's just airplane.
And that's just the airplanes. Now, this one is actually taking folks into space. So 2 NASA astronauts are stuck at the International Space Station, and they don't actually know when they're going to get back to Earth.
That's just crazy to me.
So Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, is Suni or Sunny?
I think Suni.
Suni Williams. They've been up there since June. They were supposed to be up there for 10 days.
That's bizarre.
They've been up there since June. But there are leaks on the Boeing spacecraft that has, well, the 8-day mission. I thought it was 10. It's turned their 8-day mission now into we don't know when they're going to get back.
Right now, the agency has taken the time to ensure we are not putting the crew at a higher risk than is necessary. And as astronauts, that's always something worth waiting for. Butch and Sunny are very familiar with life aboard the space station. This is their 3rd station mission for both of them.
Sorry, it's Sunny. I'm thinking Suni because Suni Lee was the gymnast.
Suni Lee, yeah.
Sorry,
we love Suni Lee.
So let's talk about the options that they have.
Yes.
They can return back on the Starliner capsule. That was the originator of the problem. Or they could send that back empty. I would say that's probably safest, but they're not listening to me. And keep the crew in space till February, where then they can hitch a ride with the SpaceX flight that's scheduled during that time. They're in this predicament, and I just want to know what they're thinking.
Yeah, did they have a say in all this? Because
probably not.
I think probably NASA tells them what they're going to do, but so we have a question for everybody. And the question is, given the choice, what would you do? Would you want to take your chances with the Boeing Starliner? Would you want to, option B is wait for SpaceX to come and rescue you?
Yes.
Or just make an emergency phone call to Elon Musk and say,
do we have the
get us out of
megaphone
here.
up, Clint? Oh, perfect.
Tell 26. So, so apparently the popular choice is to ask Elon for help ASAP.
Elon, please.
Please come rescue me.
But look at this. Only 5% say stay till February and 11% say take a chance on the Starliner. What would you do?
Well, my wife would never let me go up there anyway, but I think I would need to know more about the problems with the Starliner. Now, there's actually there's some stuff here that I skipped.
Yes,
I got
think
excited
it's a
about the poll.
helium leak.
I got too excited about the poll, so I'm going to read you some more information here that I should have read before. Okay, so the two options in front of them are to return back in the Boeing Starliner capsule, that was the originator, or send it back empty, keep the crew in space until February, which is insane. Remember, they were supposed to be up there for 8 days in June. They're talking about staying up there until February. Another issue with the SpaceX option, though, if they wait for SpaceX, is they're not the only astronauts up there. There's already a full flight, so somebody would have to get bumped off. It's just like
And then how long are they going to be stuck up there?
It's like now it's like you're hopping on a plane to Detroit, and they've overbooked the flight, and somebody's got to get bumped off the flight. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you'll get $1,000 if you wait.
Yeah, did they get like a free trip to Hawaii or something?
You get extra food.
Yeah.
Bring them up a In-N-Out burger for crying out loud.
Peanuts or something. But yeah, imagine, because I'm sure the other people have been up there and are ready to come home.
Yes.
You know, and now, gosh.
Well, and I remember them talking about bone density when you're up there, that it decreases. So, okay, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. 9 months.
At the earliest, right? I mean, I know that they had, because Mark Kelly and his brother, they're twins and they're both astronauts. Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, and his brother, why can't I remember his name? Mike Kelly? Anyway.
Somebody at the TV at home is yelling the answer. Please let us know.
Hey, Siri, what are the name of the twin astronauts who both went to the space station, last name Kelly? Mark and Scott. So anyway, I think when Scott went up, when he came back, he was like 2 inches shorter than his brother because of the bone thing.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's another reason I don't want to go to space.
No. And plus the whole bathroom situation up there is really weird in space. It's very odd.
And for girls, when your hair's like this the whole time, it's like, can we just have one good hair day, please?
Well, this one girl, lady, Sunny, or Suni, Sunny, when she got up there, her hair was all over, and she was kind of doing like this head-banging rocker thing, and it was really charming, you know? But I just don't know if she's having that much fun anymore.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. She's like
they're going to run out of experiments for them to do. Like, okay, we only came up here to do 8 days worth of experiments. Now I got to think of something to do for the next 9 months.
Walk on the treadmill.
Yeah, how much time can I spend on the treadmill? So let us know if you want to take part in that poll. It is at Tell 26, so like you could go to our app and go to a Vote Now, or
the website.
Or you can go to the website. I think it's just like fox26houston.com/tell26.
And then there was a QR code, and we're going to actually be showing it a little bit later in the show as well. So you just kind of hold up your camera and bang. So
it's amazing. That technology is a lot safer to use than going up there in that Starliner.
So from space to the tropics, the Atlantic Ocean. Ernesto is a hurricane back over the waters and is actually heading toward Bermuda as we speak.
Yeah, and as we're going to show you coming up in a little bit, I mean, it might actually be a direct hit there on Bermuda. So the storm did leave behind some destruction there in the Northeast Caribbean Sea. I mean, you could see that right here.
Wow.
Puerto Rico was hit pretty hard. Also, the Virgin Islands, places like St. Croix, St. Thomas experienced some high winds, torrential rain, and even it was only quote unquote a tropical storm, right? It did bring down some electrical lines, and which is crazy because in Puerto Rico, I mean, they're still recovering from Maria that pretty much destroyed everything. And so I wonder if, as things were rebuilt, if they're going to be more robust now or not. Kind of like the same thing we're wondering about with Beryl, like, okay, if all the electrical wires are back up, are they now more resilient or less, than before? I don't know.
That's going to be the age-old question, to see what can it withstand. And, keeping on the tropics, earlier this week, the National Hurricane Center is releasing their new cone. Now, we were talking about this, and we've been awaiting.
Yeah, because they said it was going to be sometime mid-season.
Yeah. So if we can pop up our weather graphics, there you go. So this is from Hurricane Ian.
So let's walk me through it, because it's like, as if the cone is not already the subject of discussion about being confusing and whether or not we should focus on it or not when it gets close to land,
Yes.
you know, and this always being the example with Hurricane Ian, which went directly over where you were.
So let me back you up about Hurricane Ian. The cone was so large on the west side of Florida that folks thought this was going to be hitting Tampa, because if you would have put the quote unquote center line of the cone, that was where Tampa was. But when we talk about the center line, and that doesn't mean anything, it
Right.
just shows where the center of the cone is, which is arbitrary and nobody should be listening to. So I think the issue is that where it hit in Fort Myers, it basically went up the gut of the state. So I was in Orlando at the time. Hurricane Ian made landfall as a Category 4. It was still a Category 1 when it hit Orlando. So these inland impacts would have been so nice to note, because, you know, it's a little difficult to see, but that red is showing still hurricane warnings all the way up to Orlando, and even like knocking on the door of Jacksonville. They were under tropical storm warnings. So I think it's just so important that you can't just look at the cone, and if you're not in that exact cone, that doesn't mean that you won't be seeing these inland impacts.
Yeah, and I think this was another example of being able to visualize, are you under those warnings or not? Because if they just, so you keep putting the cone up and everybody just thinks, well, if I'm not in the, well, this just happened to us with Beryl, kind of like if we're not in the middle of the cone, then I don't really have to worry about anything. But this is an example. So in the past, you would have seen a cone and you would have seen just the coastal warnings, right? So you would have had like a line around the coastline where there's hurricane warnings or tropical storm warnings in effect. But if you're in Orlando, that's not on the coastline.
No.
Just like really, if you're in Katy or the Woodlands or something like that, you're not on the coastline, but you still had terrible winds and lots of destruction from Beryl. So in that case, you would see a cone and you would have seen a hurricane warning at the beaches, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah, or like a storm surge warning,
But with the new graphic, you'll be able to see, okay, here's a cone, and oh, by the way, this whole area, including, you know, Humble and Katy or whatever, are also under hurricane warnings.
Yeah, and I think that would have been so helpful during Beryl because it was so strong so far inland.
Yeah.
And I think especially, you know, folks are maybe just jaded or they're so used to it, it's just a Category 1. Well, it's like, no, it's going to be a Category 1 in Northwest Harris County.
That makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a lot of this, you know, like this new cone, look, government works very slowly.
Yes.
They really do. And they work on these things for years. And it's like a lot of the feedback that they would hear from over the last several years takes a long time to develop these new products. And so when the cone comes out, I mean, it's sort of experimental right now. So I guess maybe it'll go into full use next year. I don't know. But the cone will look a little different and hopefully will communicate risks a little bit better than maybe it has in the past.
And then it will be interesting because obviously the example that we gave you is from years past, but I wonder how that will translate even into our graphics. You know, so can we toggle on things? That's also going to be something we'll be working through with you guys. But I think it's just good to note that we are not, or really the National Hurricane Center is not just talking to people along the coast. They really are still thinking about the inland impacts. And, you know, hopefully that means that our power can
maybe they could stage.
prep.
Yeah, because, you know, remember that was one of the problems was they said Centerpoint wasn't staged properly, you know, for a quicker response, allegedly. For a quicker response, and maybe it was because even they were maybe a little too focused on the center of the cone or maybe a little too focused on coastal areas instead of, you know, thinking that the power is going to be going out well inland. So, you know, it's just this ever-evolving effort to get as much information to you guys as we can, but it still is like it's so much information to pass along.
Yes.
It's up to us to try and
Narrow it down.
yeah, like narrow down to what the impacts are going to be.
Yeah, and I really think that this will be helpful. And if you joined us with Beryl, we had these like county by county graphics. And I think now that we have these inland impacts, it will be so much easier for us to be like, okay, Fort Bend County, you live in Sugar Land, this is what you're going to expect. So, you know, I hope we don't get another storm, but if we do, that's something that we're going to be rolling out as well. So hopefully it can just clear things up for folks, and especially on the timing and intensity. I think the cone is good for a longer outlook. But once it gets down to the nitty gritty,
yeah, once it's near the
have to
coastline,
just
you almost
ignore it.
completely drop the cone. Yeah, really. So anyway, hopefully we don't get any more practice this year, but it's still got a long season ahead. And, you know, some of our most infamous local storms have happened in September. So, but hopefully not this time. We've already had enough. Hey, speaking of the subject of energy, our friend Lena DeFlorius interviewed Joe Bertel this morning about why can't we keep the power on?
Let's hear what she says coming up after
After
the
the break.
A little change over time when the weather is
Fox 26 is
We're over it.
Okay, yeah, we had enough of that. So we've had, it's funny, we've had a couple of problems recently. We had, during the big freeze, we had the electricity went out because the grid almost went down. And then during the hurricane, the electricity went out because literally the power lines got knocked down.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
We can't win for losing.
No, we can't.
Now, Lena DeFlorius, y'all probably know and love. She's kind of like, she calls herself a grid girl. That's what she says.
She keeps up on
because she just really got, well, not obsessed, but very, very interested in everything that happened after the grid almost collapsed. And so that's been like her beat, So did an interview this morning on the news with our friend Joe Bertel, who's a great guy. I don't know if you've met Joe.
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I missed him by just, must have been like
he was great,
30
yeah.
minutes this
He's great. He
morning.
comes on and talks about politics and sometimes money and stuff like that. But he's a terrific guy. I didn't say hi to him today. He's probably wondering why. I didn't mean to not say hi to him. But anyway, here's Lena's interview with him.
We are living in the energy capital of the world, so why can't we keep the power on? So for the last couple of years, we've been kind of bagging on ERCOT because there's been problems. Now everybody's focused on CenterPoint. Why can't we get things to work? So we have Joe Bertel, who's an energy expert here. And I want to be clear, you don't work for CenterPoint. Nope. You don't rep CenterPoint. Nope. But we want to talk about CenterPoint's resiliency plan because they're saying, hey, you might be without power while we're getting all this stuff up to where it should be. So kind of give us the lowdown on what they're doing, how long is it going to take, and why is this a problem problem in the first place?
Well, it's a problem in the first place because, like every other utility entity in the country, CenterPoint is dealing with a couple of factors. You have more storms of greater intensity that are hitting old infrastructure. And so in light of what happened with Hurricane Beryl, where so many Houstonians, including myself, lost power and spent a couple of very warm days, they've come back and said, okay, here's the plan that we are going to implement to try and combat some of the growth that we've had in Houston that's put a greater strain on the system, as well as prepare for some of these climate change driven storms that are requiring greater resiliency and capability from our infrastructure.
So I do have to ask, though, with a lot of the infrastructure, that would be like the city, that would be the state. So is it CenterPoint working alone to get all this done, or do we need the state and the city to step in and do a little bit of work themselves?
It's a great question. It's got to be a collaboration, and I think that's the important thing for viewers to understand. Like, you know, even this week as they announced phase 1 of the program, where, you know, they're hardening some of those wooden poles that are out and making sure that they're more resilient to some of the storms we're going to see. People are going to lose power for a few hours. There is going to be some frustration, but what I would liken it to, Lena, is when you remodel a room in your house. My wife and I just remodeled our kitchen not too long ago. You lose use of that facility temporarily in order to upgrade. And I think, you know, look, so far, let's give CenterPoint credit for what's happened, right? There was mistakes made. They've fessed up to it, and there's ongoing investigations as to what could have been done better. But they came back and said, here's the plan, and they're now executing on that plan. So let's go step by step and say, hey, as they execute and as we're better keeping that power on, you know, hold them accountable.
Okay, and then let me ask you too, there was in March, they submitted a plan for a 2% rate hike. That was before the derecho, before the hurricane as well. They pulled that back and said, we're not going to ask for it. Do you expect they're going to resubmit that maybe at a higher rate, or you think that's just off the table for now? Because I'm thinking they still need the money to do what they were hoping to do.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's a complicated sort of relationship whereby, you know, these companies keep our lights on, provide what we need to do business every day, and then are able by law to recoup some of those costs. In terms of you know, the cost take back in the near future, probably I think you'll see them wait on that a little bit. Like I said, wanted to rebuild trust, wanted to show that they've made real progress. And, you know, the thing to understand is, like, there is a sense of urgency here because we are still in the middle of hurricane season that has been predicted to be pretty robust. So these things have to be done pretty quickly.
Okay, so you wouldn't be surprised if we do see that rate hike ask, but you're thinking it'll probably be off the table for a little while for the time being anyway.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's well within how they're set up. And, you know, cost take back is part of how these companies are under law. Sort of built and working in partnership with the state and the city.
Well, I wish I could say the same for myself. All right, thank you so much.
All right, well, let's take another look at how the results have changed a little.
Ooh, they've changed. Before it was 5 and 11, and then 80. I forgot to look at the bottom, but
but most people are still saying if you were stuck in space, like the two astronauts are stuck there right now because of the potential problems with the Boeing Starliner, most people are saying that they would send an emergency tweet or X post to Elon to ask for help. I will admit that I voted that I would take a chance on the Starliner. I cannot imagine being stuck up there till February.
I would say stay until February because that just seems like the safest option for me, and I would just say, okay, bone density, whatever, I'll deal with that. But I think Elon can make something happen. He is a very wealthy man and can get stuff done.
Yeah.
We'll see, though.
I would say, you know what, just tomorrow morning, just put me on the Starliner and we'll see what happens. Yeah, they said it's a helium leak.
Yeah. Helium's leaking balloons all the time.
I know. Do you know that the helium, I don't know how I know this stuff. It's so stupid. Like, I wish I had
random facts of
life. No, I know,
life.
random facts. Like, I wish I knew stuff that mattered, but the national supply of helium, like the strategic helium supply, is here in Texas, in Amarillo, Texas. It's stored underground. That is the United States supply of helium.
And that's how we get all of our birthday party balloons up in the air.
That's why we waste a lot of helium. And once we use all the helium, there's nothing left.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, they get it from natural gas, I think. But yeah.
You learn something new every day, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, coming up, quick check of your forecast. You're not going to want to miss it.
A little change
Fox 26 News.
Welcome back, everyone. Just quickly wanted to take you out to weather of the day. It's hot, middle of August heat, and it does call for a heat advisory. We are at 11:27, and already current temperatures are in the widespread low 90s. Feels like temps today are going to be peaking well above 107, 108 degrees. So please stay hydrated. Most of the area is dry right now. There are a few isolated showers down near Port Lavaca, but other than that, I'd say things are going to be pretty quiet until after lunchtime. Then we could be seeing a few isolated showers, maybe a rumble of thunder or two from Katy, Sugar Land, Tomball, Huntsville, but really not everyone's going to see the rain. If you do, it will be a welcomed cool down because we're not getting any of that in the next 7 days. Forecast highs will be back to 100 degrees starting on Saturday through at least the middle of next week. And honestly, low-end rain chances will be the name of the game. So stay hydrated, stay cool, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy Thursday, everyone.